Frank also gave a statement that um, after the shooting, that Suge had had Frank come over to his Paradise Valley mansion that night, and the two had a meeting by the swimming pool, which has the red Death Row logo in it. And um, Frank I gave the detectives a statement that Suge said to him to say that now not Reggie, he said Suge in this statement, right? Suge said for him to say that Orlando Anderson snatched the chain off Tupac's neck, and that's what set off the attack. I don't think y'all heard me. Frank gave a statement that Suge called him over to his Paradise Valley mansion that night, and the two had a meeting by the swimming pool. And Frank says in this statement, in black and white, that Suge said to him, say that Orlando Anderson snatched the chain from Tupac, and that's what set off the attack. And Frank said, you know, him being anxious to leave, that he agreed to whatever Suge told him to say, right? And then on the afternoon of September 13th, Suge called Frank back to his house, but now with the more threatening attitude, and David Kenner and Reggie Wright Jr. was there. Frank said before he realized what was going on, Suge was blaming him for Tupac's death, insisting to Frank that he should have had his gun on him, whether he had a permit or not. He said the atmosphere became so ominous that he felt that he may not make it out of Suge's house alive. Frank said as soon as he thought about making a run for it, Suge's phone rang, and he had got the call that Tupac was dead. He said that when Suge got that call, he seemed to forget that Frank was there and shit. So Frank got up out of there, and he never saw Suge in person again. So when Suge got violated, that's when Frank started getting the calls again on a regular basis from David Kenner and Milton Grimes, the lawyers. And they wanted him to testify for Suge. And Frank told him that he would be a better witness for the prosecution than the defense. After Frank told the LAPD, after Frank gave a statement to the LAPD, and then that's when Michael Moore told him that Death Row wanted to have him killed. Now we all heard that phone call when Michael Moore called Frank and told him that DR wants you dead, right? And he like, DR, what's DR? He was like, Death Row. And then remember, uh, Frank hung up with Michael Moore, and then he called the other security dude that was close with Reggie and told him what Michael Moore said. And then that dude was like, yeah, yeah, Frank. I heard the same thing. That's the truth. That is documented. That was documented. Oh yeah, David was there. And then Frank said he got another call from David Kenner at another point, and he was questioning Frank about, yo, what you told LAPD? And then Frank, you know, uh, David Kenner told him what LAPD was saying, and Frank said he denied that he said that to the LAPD. But all the evidence that pointed to Orlando Anderson as the shooter, guess what? All of that came from anonymous informants. Everybody that said it was Orlando never revealed their identity. That's why your boy Pork Butt, he had to pay phone. It was Orlando. Yeah, first ballot, you might got that right, right? So there's a guy named Kenneth Knox who worked for the Internal Affairs team, and he started investigating, right? Now, these are names that you might not know, like Richard McCulley from the LAPD, right? So when they started pressing Pork Butt about who was the cops working for them, right? Which go Pork Butt didn't want to give up no names, so they was going to subpoena him to give up all the names of the people that worked for him, right? So he gave up a few names: Hurley Glenn Kreiner, David Love, and Kenneth Sutton. Those are the only three he gave up when they started pressing him. But then what he did was he gave them a sheet of paper with all the cops' names that was hired for that weekend, right? The interesting thing, right? James Green and McCulley, Richie McCulley, they stated that Suge Knight paid for rooms for them to stay in the Luxor Hotel. Tupac was staying in the Luxor Hotel. So how much, who want to bet me, right, that at least one of these cops is in that MGM Grand video? Out of James Green, Richard McCulley, Hurley Glenn Kreiner, David Love, or Kenneth Sutton. Now I don't know who these guys are. I don't know what they look like. But best believe I'm going to research and see what they look like. And even though some of these the Vegas videos is grainy and hard to see, we'll be able to make out somebody. But it's so much, so much, so much more. But I'm gonna come back with more in a minute, right? What I know though is all that Puffy killed Tupac and set that up. I'm sorry, y'all. I personally believe that was all a death row in-house thing, allegedly, right? And it's so much more, right? But I'll be back tomorrow.